I believed my son was traveling for work. That's what he told me anyway. Different cities, different hotels, tight schedules, meetings that ran late, flights that changed last minute. I never questioned it. When you raise a child on your own for most of his life, you learn when to worry and when not to. And my son Daniel had never given me a reason to doubt him. He was responsible, organized, the kind of boy teachers praised and neighbors admired. After his father passed away, it was just the two of us in our small house on a quiet street. I worked, he studied. We learned how to exist without making too much noise about our grief. So when he grew up, got a good job, and started traveling, I took it as a sign I'd done something right. My name is Margaret. I'm 62 years old, widowed for nearly 12 years now. I've lived in the same house for over 2 decades. It's not big, but it's solid. The kind of place where the floorboards creak in familiar places and the neighbors wave because they recognize your routine. Daniel used to live here too. He moved out about 2 years ago, said he needed to be closer to work. A shorter commute, more independence, I understood. Parents are supposed to let go even when it feels like losing something piece by piece. Still, he visited often, or at least he used to. Over the past 6 months, the visits became less frequent, the phone calls shorter. He always sounded tired, distracted. "I'm heading out again, Mom," he'd say. "Another work trip," I'd ask. "Yeah, I'll call when I land." And he usually did, sometimes from noisy hotel lobbies, sometimes late at night, his voice low, like he didn't want to disturb anyone. I told myself that was normal. Careers demand things. Life moves forward whether you're ready or not. That afternoon started like any other. I had just finished folding laundry when the doorbell rang. It was around 2 o'clock, too early for dinner guests, too late for mail. I wasn't expecting anyone. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and opened the door to find a young man in a delivery uniform standing on my porch, cardboard box in hand, clipboard tucked under his arm. "Good afternoon," he said politely. "Delivery for," he glanced down, then back up at me. "Daniel Carter," I frowned slightly. "That's my son," I said, "but he doesn't live here anymore." The driver looked confused. He checked the label again. "This is the address on the package," he said. "Is he available?" "No," I replied slowly. "He's out of town, traveling for work." The driver hesitated, not dramatically, just enough that I noticed. "Well," he said, "it requires a signature. Could you accept it for him?" I should have said no. I don't know why I didn't. Maybe it was habit, or maybe it was that small flicker of curiosity I didn't want to admit to myself. Daniel still listed my address for certain things. Bank statements sometimes, official paperwork. I nodded. "That's fine," I said. "I'm his mother." He handed me the clipboard. I signed my name, thanked him, and took the box. It was heavier than I expected, not huge, but solid. As I closed the door, I glanced down at the label again. Daniel's name was printed clearly, not handwritten, not rushed, professionally typed, and beneath it, my address. I stood there for a moment, box in my arms, listening to the sound of the delivery truck pulling away. Something didn't sit right. If Daniel was traveling, why send a package here? I carried it into the kitchen and placed it on the table. Just looking at it made my chest feel tight. I told myself not to overthink it. People forget to update addresses all the time. Still, I didn't open it. I made myself a cup of tea and sat across from the box like it might move on its own. Daniel called that evening, right on schedule. "Hey, Mom," he said. His voice sounded cheerful, a little too cheerful. "Hi, sweetheart," I replied. "How's your trip going?" "Busy," he said quickly. "Meetings all day. I'm exhausted." "Where are you now?" I asked. There was a pause, not long but noticeable. "Chicago," he said. "I think." Honestly, they all blur together. I smiled, though he couldn't see it. "Well," I said, "a package arrived for you today." Another pause. "Oh," he said. "What kind of package?" "I didn't open it," I replied. "It's here, though." "That's odd," he said lightly. "Must be something automatic. I'll deal with it when I get back." "When will that be?" I asked. "Soon," he said. "Couple of weeks, maybe." We talked a bit longer about nothing important, whether his work, a neighbor's new dog. When we hung up, I sat in the quiet kitchen, staring at the box again. Couple of weeks. I stood up and walked closer, running my fingers over the tape. I still didn't open it, not yet. But for the first time in a very long while, I felt something I couldn't explain. A sense that the life I thought I understood had a missing piece, and that box on my kitchen table was quietly waiting to show it to me. I did not open the package that night. I told myself it wasn't mine, that it belonged to my son, that opening it would cross a line I wasn't ready to cross, so I left it on the kitchen table. All night, I went to bed early, but sleep didn't come easily. I kept thinking about the delivery driver's hesitation, that brief pause before he handed it to me. People don't pause like that for no reason. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the house settle. Every creak sounded louder than usual. Every shadow felt heavier. At some point after midnight, I got up. I walked quietly back to the kitchen. The box was still there, unmoved, untouched, waiting. I sat across from it again, the same way I had earlier, like it might speak if I stared long enough. I noticed things I hadn't before. The return address. It wasn't a business. It was a residential address, a local one. My heart thumped harder. If Daniel was traveling, why was something being shipped from less than 20 minutes away? I picked up my phone. I didn't call him. I didn't text him. I just opened the Maps app and typed in the address. The pin dropped immediately, close, too close. I swallowed. I set the phone down and wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold. This was none of my business, I told myself. Children have private lives, adult lives. Still, I couldn't stop my hands from shaking. I left the box where it was and went back to bed. Morning came too soon. I made coffee I barely tasted. Stood at the sink longer than necessary, watched sunlight spill across the counter and stop at the edge of the box. It felt like a line. Once crossed, there would be no going back. The phone rang around 9. Daniel again. "Morning, Mom," he said. "Good morning," I replied. "You sound awake early." "Couldn't sleep," he said quickly. "Jet lag," I waited. "About that package," he added. "You don't need to worry about it." "I wasn't worried," I said gently. Another pause. "If it's still there, just leave it unopened," he said. "I'll pick it up when I'm back." "When will that be again?" I asked. "Soon, always soon." "Work stuff changed," he said. "It might be longer than I thought." My fingers tightened around the mug. "I see," I said. He rushed off the phone, said he had a meeting, said he loved me. I said it back. After the call ended, the kitchen felt smaller. I stared at the box again. He was lying. I didn't know why yet. I didn't know how deep it went. But I knew that voice. I had known it since the day he was born. That hesitation wasn't exhaustion, it was fear. I didn't open the package right away. Instead, I cleaned. I wiped counters already clean, folded laundry that didn't need folding, organized drawers that hadn't changed in years. Anything to stay busy, but my eyes kept drifting back. Finally, just before noon, I sat down. I placed my hands on the box. The tape peeled back easily, too easily, like it had been opened before. Inside, there was no note, no invoice, just carefully packed items. Clothes, men's clothes, not travel clothes, not work clothes, casual things, a hoodie I had never seen, a pair of sneakers, toiletries, and something else, a small framed photo. I picked it up, my breath caught. It was Daniel, standing beside a woman, her arm around his waist, his hand resting on her back. They weren't posing. They were comfortable, intimate, happy. I sat very still. My heart felt like it was folding in on itself. I looked closer. It wasn't a hotel room. It was a living room, warm lighting, throw pillows, a bookshelf behind them. This wasn't a trip. This was a life. I set the photo down carefully like it might break. My mind raced. Who was she? How long had this been going on? Why send this here? I checked the box again. At the bottom, folded neatly, was a piece of mail, an envelope, addressed to Daniel. Same local address as the return label. Inside was a lease agreement. My hands trembled as I read Daniel's name, another name, joint tenants. My vision blurred. My son hadn't been traveling. He had been living somewhere else with someone else. I sat there for a long time. I didn't cry, not yet. I felt something worse, disoriented, like the ground had shifted under my feet and I was still standing where it used to be. I thought back over the past year, the missed holidays, the rushed phone calls, the excuses. The times I told myself not to be needy, not to ask too many questions, because good mothers don't cling, good mothers trust. I trusted him. And somewhere along the way, that trust had been used as cover. I repacked the box carefully, exactly as I'd found it. I placed the photo back where it had been. I resealed the tape. My hands moved slowly, deliberately. By the time I finished, I felt oddly calm, not relieved, resolved. That afternoon, someone knocked on my door again. I froze. It wasn't the delivery driver. It was a woman, mid-30s, brown hair, nervous smile. "Hi," she said softly. "I'm sorry to bother you. I think a package meant for my address was delivered here by mistake." My chest tightened. "Yes," I said after a moment. "It was." She looked relieved. "Thank you," she said. "I was worried it got lost." I handed her the box. Our fingers brushed. She smiled at me, a kind smile, not guilty, not defensive, just human. As she turned to leave, she paused. You're Daniel's mother, right? She asked. I nodded. He talks about you a lot, she said. He's lucky. I watched her walk away. I closed the door slowly, and that's when the tears came, not loud, not dramatic, just steady. Because in that moment, I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to think before. Whatever my son had been hiding, I was no longer outside of it. And the next time we spoke, things would not stay unspoken. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the dark, replaying everything in my head. The box, the photo, the woman at my door. Her smile wasn't cruel. That was the worst part. She didn't look like someone hiding. She looked like someone who belonged. By morning, my eyes burned. My body felt heavy, but my mind was sharp, too sharp. I made breakfast out of habit. Toast I didn't eat, tea that went cold. At 9 sharp, my phone rang. Daniel, I stared at the screen. I could ignore it. Pretend I was busy, buy myself time. But time was exactly what he'd been stealing from me. I answered. Mom, he said, cheerful again. Everything okay? Yes, I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, too steady. We need to talk. There was a pause. About what? The package, I said. Silence. Not the kind filled with background noise, the kind filled with calculation. I told you I'd handle that, he said finally. I know, I replied, but it was delivered here with my address. Her name, another pause. Did you open it? He asked. I closed my eyes. Yes, the word landed between us like a dropped plate. Why would you do that? He snapped. I felt a flash of anger then, sharp, clean. Because you lied, I said quietly, and because it came to my house. He exhaled hard. It's not what you think, he said quickly, too quickly. I think you're not traveling for work, I replied. I think you live nearby, and I think you've been doing so for a while. He didn't answer. I pressed on. I think you have a life you didn't want me to see, and you used me as a return address because it was convenient. Mom, no, I said. Listen, my hands were shaking now, but I didn't stop. I raised you. I know when you're afraid, and right now you sound afraid. I didn't want to hurt you, he said. His voice cracked just a little. That doesn't make it better, I said. It makes it worse. He was quiet for a long moment. I was going to tell you, he said. When? I asked. Soon, always soon. I didn't know how, he added. I laughed then, a small, broken sound. You found plenty of ways not to tell me, he sighed. She's not what you think, he said. This isn't some betrayal. I pictured the photo again, the way his hand rested on her back. Then what is it? I asked. He didn't answer. Daniel, I said softly. How long? Almost a year, he admitted. The room tilted. A year, holidays, birthdays, phone calls filled with lies. And you told me you were traveling, I said. Yes. You let me worry, I said. You let me imagine you alone in strange cities. I didn't think you'd take it this hard, he said. That hurt more than anything else. You didn't think, I said. He started explaining then about feeling stuck, about wanting something different, about how it just happened. Words piled on top of words. None of them fixed anything. I let him talk. When he finished, I said one thing. You should come here. Silence again. What? He asked. Today, I said. I don't want another phone call. I don't want excuses. I want you to look at me and tell me why you thought this was acceptable. I don't know if that's a good idea, he said. It's necessary, I replied. He hesitated. She doesn't know I've been lying to you, he said quietly. That told me everything. You told her, I said slowly, but you didn't tell me. He didn't deny it. Come here, I said again, or don't. Either way, I won't pretend anymore. I'll come, he said finally. When the call ended, my hands were numb. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the same spot where the box had sat the day before. I wasn't angry anymore. I was tired, tired of guessing, tired of being managed. Around noon, there was a knock at the door. This time I knew who it was. I opened it slowly. Daniel stood there. He looked thinner, older. He didn't hug me. Neither did I. We sat across from each other at the table. The same table where he'd once done homework, the same table where I'd signed permission slips and birthday cards. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, he said. You planned it, I replied. That's how it happened. He looked down. I didn't want you to think less of me, he said. I felt something twist inside my chest. Then why did you make it impossible not to? I asked. He swallowed. She's waiting in the car, he said quietly. I froze. What? I asked. She wanted to come, he added. She thought maybe it would help. Help, I stood up. No, I said firmly. Not today, he nodded quickly. I'll tell her, he said. Tell her what? I asked. That this is my mess, he replied, not hers. For the first time since he arrived, I believed him. We talked for hours, not calmly, not easily, but honestly. He admitted he'd been afraid of disappointing me. I admitted I'd been afraid of being left. By the time the sun dipped low, nothing was fixed, but nothing was hidden either. When he stood to leave, he hesitated. I'm sorry, he said. I nodded. I know, I replied, but sorry doesn't rewind time. He left quietly. I closed the door and leaned against it, breathing deeply. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew one thing for certain. The truth had finally been said out loud, and once that happens, nothing stays the same again. The house felt different after Daniel left, not emptier, just unsettled, like the walls had overheard something they weren't meant to hear and didn't know how to hold it. I stood in the hallway for a long time after the door closed, listening to the sound of his car pulling away, waiting for the familiar relief that usually followed a difficult conversation. It didn't come. Instead, there was a quiet ache in my chest, a deep one, the kind that doesn't scream, the kind that sits with you. I walked back into the kitchen and sat down at the table again. That table had seen everything. Homework nights, arguments, apologies scribbled on scrap paper, celebrations with cake crumbs and laughter. Now it held silence. I replayed our conversation again and again, not the big moments, the small ones, the way he avoided my eyes, the way he said almost a year like it was a minor detail, the way he talked about fear but never about responsibility. I had spent so long trying to understand him. I realized I hadn't once asked myself what this had done to me. That night, I didn't cook dinner. I made soup from a can and ate it standing at the counter. The television stayed off. I didn't want noise filling the space where thoughts needed to land. Around 10, my phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. I hope you're okay. I really am sorry. I stared at the screen. I didn't reply, not because I wanted to punish him, but because I didn't yet know what words would be honest. I went to bed early. Sleep came in pieces, dreams without stories, just feelings. When morning arrived, I woke with a decision already forming. I couldn't pretend this was over just because we'd talked. Truth spoken once doesn't erase what came before it. I needed clarity, not for him, for myself. I got dressed and drove. I didn't plan the route consciously. My hands just turned the wheel. Before I realized it, I was pulling up near the address on the return label. The building wasn't special. A modest apartment complex, clean, well kept, the kind of place people start fresh. I sat in my car and watched the entrance for a long time. People came and went, a couple with groceries, a man walking a dog, a woman on her phone, laughing, normal life. This wasn't some secret world. It was just life continuing without me. I didn't go inside. I didn't need to, seeing it was. On the drive home, I thought about all the times I'd told myself not to interfere, not to ask, not to push. I had confused respect with silence. And silence, I was learning, can be very comfortable for people who don't want to explain themselves. When I got home, there was an envelope in my mailbox, handwritten address, no return name. I knew before I opened it. Inside was a note, short, careful. Margaret, I'm so sorry you found out the way you did. Daniel told me everything last night. I didn't know he was lying to you. I never would have been part of that. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I see you. I sat on the front steps and read it twice. She saw me. That line stayed. It was strange how much that mattered, more than explanations, more than apologies, someone acknowledging that I existed in this story. That afternoon, Daniel called again. I didn't answer. Not yet. I needed time without his voice shaping my thoughts. Instead, I called my sister. We hadn't spoken deeply in years. Life had scattered us. She answered on the second ring. Margaret, she said, is everything okay? No, I replied honestly, but I need you. She listened, didn't interrupt, didn't rush me. When I finished, she sighed. I'm sorry, she said. That's a lot. I keep wondering where I went wrong, I admitted. She didn't hesitate. You didn't, she said. Children make choices, even good ones. That sentence loosened something inside me. I hadn't realized how tightly I'd been holding blame. That night, I finally replied to Daniel, I need space, not because I don't love you, but because I need to understand what I feel without trying to protect yours. I'll reach out when I'm ready. He didn't argue. That told me he understood more than he'd shown. The days that followed were quiet, painful, but clear. I cleaned the house slowly, not out of nervous energy, but intention. I went through old boxes, found drawings he'd made as a child. Notes from school, birthday cards where he'd written, love you forever. I didn't throw anything away, but I stopped treating memories like proof of obligation. Love doesn't mean accepting everything. That realization was new and heavy. By the end of the week, something inside me had shifted. I wasn't waiting anymore, not for explanations, not for reassurance. I was standing, and whatever came next, confrontation, distance, rebuilding, it would happen with my eyes open. Because being a mother doesn't mean being invisible. And silence, I had learned, is not the same as peace. I didn't wake up angry. That surprised me. For days, I had expected anger to arrive like a storm, loud, unavoidable, destructive. Instead, I woke up calm, not peaceful, just steady. There is a difference. I made breakfast and actually ate it. Toast, eggs, coffee that didn't go cold. Outside, the morning moved on like nothing had happened. Neighbors walked dogs. Cars came and went. Life uninterrupted. And yet mine had been quietly rewritten. The phone rang just after 9. Daniel. I watched it buzz on the table until it stopped. A minute later, a text, "Please, I just want to talk." I took a breath before replying, "I'm willing to talk, but not to explain your choices for you, and not to be talked into understanding something that hurt me." The typing dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. I understand. I doubted that, but I appreciated the effort. We agreed to meet later that afternoon. Neutral ground, a small cafe halfway between our homes. When I arrived, Daniel was already there. He stood when he saw me, nervous, hands clasped too tightly. I didn't hug him. I sat. He followed. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, he did. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he said. I nodded. "Good," I replied, "because I'm not there." He flinched. "I need to say something," I continued, "and you need to listen without interrupting." He nodded again. "I am not angry that you fell in love," I said. "People don't choose that." He exhaled, relieved too soon. "I am angry that you chose lies over honesty repeatedly, easily." He opened his mouth. I raised my hand. "I'm angry that you let me worry about you while you built a life I was not allowed to know existed." His eyes dropped. "And I am angry," I added, "that you used my trust as a convenience." The words landed quietly, but they landed. "I thought I was protecting you," he said weakly. "You were protecting yourself," I replied. He swallowed. "That's not the same thing." Sat in silence again. People around us laughed, ordered coffee, lived. "I don't know what to do now," he said finally. "I do," I said. He looked up. "I am stepping back," I told him, "not because I don't love you, but because our relationship cannot continue the way it was." "What does that mean?" he asked. "It means I won't cover for you," I said. "I won't lie to relatives, I won't smooth things over, and I won't pretend everything is fine just so you feel comfortable." He nodded slowly. "Also means," I continued, "that if you want a relationship with me, it has to be built on truth, even when it's uncomfortable." "I can do that," he said quickly. "We'll see," I replied. I paid for my coffee and stood. He stood too. "I'm proud of you," he said suddenly, "for how you're handling this." I looked at him. "That's not something you get to say right now," I replied calmly. His face fell. I didn't enjoy that, but I didn't soften it either. When I got home, there was another message. "From L, I hope today went okay. I know I don't have a right to say much, but if you ever want to talk without pressure, I'm here." I stared at it for a long time, then I typed back, "Thank you for being honest. That matters more than you know." I didn't add anything else. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in years. I made plans, not family plans, not obligation plans, personal ones. I signed up for a class I'd been postponing. Booked a weekend trip I'd always talked myself out of. Small things, but deliberate. Daniel called again that night. I didn't answer, not out of spite, out of boundaries. I needed space to let this new version of myself settle, the kind that doesn't rush to fix what she didn't break. Over the next few days, word spread quietly, not through gossip, through honesty. When relatives asked where Daniel was, I said the truth. He's building a life of his own. I didn't explain further. I didn't apologize for it. Some looked surprised, some uncomfortable. I didn't manage their reactions. That was new too. A week later, Daniel showed up at my door unexpectedly. I didn't invite him in. We stood on the porch. "I just wanted to check on you," he said. "I'm doing fine," I replied. "I can see that," he said softly. There was a pause. "I'm learning," he added, "slowly, but I am." "I hope so," I said. "For your sake," he nodded. "I'll call before coming by next time," he said. "That would be good," I replied. He left. I closed the door, and for the first time since all of this began, I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief, not because everything was resolved, but because I had finally drawn a line, and I hadn't erased myself to do it. There was still grief ahead, still adjustment, still moments that would sting, but there was also space, space to breathe, space to stand. And space, I was learning, is sometimes the most loving thing you can give to yourself and to the people who must learn to meet you there.